Good morning. Good morning. Welcome to another edition of ASTV's pre-match preview, as we will look to do Burnley versus Liverpool, East Coast time here. So Maka and I have been up for a few. It's about 8:15 in the morning. So for those of you joining us Central Time Zone or West Coast, we appreciate you getting up extra early with us. Grab your coffee, and we'll get going. Salah is the goat. Is the first one in with a good morning, yo. Appreciate you, yo. Back. While you're at it, go ahead and like that stream for us. Share it with some friends. We'll get it out there, and we'll have some fun this morning, Maka. But speaking of having fun, footy is back. We are no longer talking about stupid international matches that mean or don't mean anything. And we're back with a cracker. Trip to Burnley. Said nobody ever. Volunteering for that trip to Burnley. So before we get into it, Maka, how are you this morning?
No, I'm good. It's a Sunday. I'm tired. I'm always tired, but I don't get many Sundays off, so I'm taking full advantage of this by watching a Liverpool game, followed by the Manchester Derby afterwards. I mean, that's a good Sunday, I think, viewing wise.
It really is. And yesterday, we'll talk maybe if we have some time. We'll talk a little bit about yesterday's matches, and really couldn't have gone any better outside of maybe Arsenal dropping points. But we all knew there was no way Ange was keeping a clean sheet or helping that Nottingham Forest team probably take points off Arsenal 48 hours after maybe the most strangest, oddest appointment in the history of appointments, mate. Didn't make much sense to me. Didn't look like it was going to work. We have our first prediction in. We'll do those at the end of the show. But as always, get your comments in. We'll read them on screen. And feel free to converse with each other. 3-1 Liverpool, sadly, Isak Noor. And that comment was Isak not in the team. So let's get at it. Let's go to the team. Here is the team that sets up for the Reds. Jamie did confirm by watching LFC TV, they are wearing the green. So this will be the debut of the new third kit. I got to admit, they look even better when I see them kind of on the players. I thought they looked good when they were just like in the prototype. I know Jamie's love for them is they make him feel very Irish. As a fellow Irishman, do you concur, Maka? Are you a fan of the third kit and the green and white setup that Adidas is rocking this season?
The Liverpool in green and white just reminds me of the 90s with like Fowler and Collymore and all that, and that checker kind of like square kit. And I liked that kit. And then I think you had the white with the green trim as well for a bit when Stig. I can just remember Stig Bjarnaby wearing it. So I'm happy with green. I remember it reminds me of good times where he played good football but didn't win trophies. Now he seemed to do both, so I'm quite happy with that.
Yeah, I'm quite happy with playing good football and winning trophies, to be honest. So, Salah is the GOAT, broke the big news in the chat before we brought the graphic up, but Alexander Isak has not made the bench. There was talk, and even Schlatt in his press conference mentioned there's a chance he could see the bench, but they were going to allow the sports science team to basically make final call when regards to when we would see Isak and for how much. He obviously did play, I think it was an 18-minute run out with Sweden. All in all, by all accounts, he looked good, but he did look leggy, and at times you could see him breathing heavy. I don't think I wanted to see him. I would have loved him to get a 10-minute run out here. I almost feel like the manager protects against himself by not having him on the bench here, Maka, to almost say, if this game is tight and close late, am I going to want to bring on Alexander Isak or Chiesa or Rio, right? And he protected himself almost. To me, this probably means he gets a full week because I can't see them putting him on the bench in the Champions League against Atletico Madrid. Can you?
No, I would imagine part of it might be that not only did he want to make sure he doesn't break down too early, but they also want to make sure he can give his best when he plays.
Right.
He's going to want to make a good showing for the Liverpool fans as well. So it might be a whole mutual thing. Like, how do you feel? You don't need a sports scientist for that one. I'm not quite. I want to play, but I'd rather have an extra bit of time to get up to speed, and then when he
Training
gets
sessions too.
hitting the ground running.
He's barely had training sessions with his teammates.
Yeah.
Not like he's been here for 2 weeks getting ready for this. He's been
Yeah.
Sweden for those 2 weeks. So I understand it. Let's talk about the lineup. I thought we might see a couple changes here on Monday night. I thought we'd get Bradley in this matchup and move Szoboszlai back into the midfield. I understand if it ain't broke, don't fix it. But let's just be real. He can play great, and he is great. But Dominic Szoboszlai is not a right back. And as much as he's playing great as one right now, and a way to get him into the lineup, McAllister looks leggy. He had a mediocre performance for Argentina. He hasn't looked great so far. He doesn't look like he's at match fitness. So just seemed like it made so much sense to start Connor Bradley or even Frimpong, today, one of the two of them at their traditional right back and move Szoboszlai back into midfield. Are you surprised that we're getting the tried and trusted McAllister and Gravenberch at the base and now Szoboszlai at right back for a third match in a row, especially against a side like Burnley?
I think it's maybe because it's Burnley. Like if it was a bigger deal of a game, I think you might see what you said. We might see Szoboszlai and Gravenberch instead of McAllister, and then you might see Frimpong or Bradley at right back because everybody has to be sharp. That's not to underestimate Burnley, but they haven't shown themselves to be a threat to anybody. For example, in comparison, Brentford looked like they were probably going to go down, but they look a bit solid. Like after yesterday's game against Chelsea. But Burnley they look like the Luton Town of this season. That they're not showing any sort of organisation. So maybe this is the game that Slot looked at and goes, I could get away with it one more time, and then after that we can assess where McAllister is, because he always comes back from the internationals, needing a game or two to get back into it, doesn't he?
Yeah, and that's part of it too. Kazi and I Friday morning we're talking about it. The single worst performance I've ever seen McAllister put in a Liverpool shirt is that Wolves first half where he gets yanked the first season he's here, and he comes back from international duty with Argentina, and he just absolutely doesn't look up for it. So it'll be interesting to see what they do here. Obviously, tried and true front four. What are you expecting today from Florian Wirtz? Because for me, it's matches like this is why they bought Florian Wirtz, to be that person, to pick a low block, to break down a press, to find the key passes. Like, is today his day? Is today the breakout? Is today the goal and 2 assists? Is today the day that, we get the welcome Florian Wirtz to the Premier League? Or you think it's going to take a little bit longer? Or does that maybe happen in Europe where he gets a little bit more space, it's a little less physical, and we start to see some of those on-ball traits? Because the work rate has been a shocking surprise of how well he's run and how well he's done defensively. Still feel like he's maybe a step off the pace of the Premier League. Am I being too harsh on the guy? I'm not trying to be overly critical. I'm also trying not to do it's been beautiful so far, because when you pay 116 million, you do expect something a little bit more, and you hope it happens faster. The longer it goes, the more pressure piles on the young German, in my opinion.
I think you're right there. But just kind of coincidentally, and I think it might have been about Wirtz actually. I hear the quote from Roy Keane of all people, quoting Bill Shankly, which shocks me no end. But he said that Shankly once said that you can tell a player best when they have more time and space, because then you can actually see what decisions they're making on the ball. If they can't make good decisions when they have loads of time and space, then they're useless to you. So I think the part of the problem for Wirtz is I think a lot of continental players have this when they first go to England, to a top team. They don't understand until it happens to them that even the lowest level teams, like the 3 relegation spot teams, are going to play every game like they're winning the league in terms of work rate and getting in your face and trying to win. But that's the key thing about the English game, is that you're under pressure, literally defensive pressure, even in a low block. There's no sitting off and third man defending, etc. It's literally in your face after a certain point in the pitch. And he's had that so far with Bournemouth, Arsenal, and Newcastle. Those are three teams that get into your face when you're on the ball. Burnley, from what I've seen in 2 games so far out of the 3, they leave a lot of gaps. Like they're so unstructured. It doesn't shock me that it's England's brave Scotty Parker coaching them, but they leave so many gaps in terms, like they're not as compact as you would expect a team to be with their defensive record last year. So I think he'll get more space today to unpick the lock. Maybe he might have 8 defenders in front of him to pick the lock through, but he's going to have space on the ball if he drops off a bit more, and you might see what I expected in terms of like sort of Thiago like passing. Maybe he's catching them out in their block because he can tread the needle. Like we've seen him in the clips from Germany. He can tread the ball through a number of players. So maybe this is the game where he's not constantly under pressure. He's not constantly got a player trying to take the ball off him. So he'll actually get a chance to see things and then play the passes that he wants to play. So yeah, you could be right. This could be his goal and 2 assists game and sets him up nicely for the rest of the week.
Good morning, KG Zaki. Thanks for joining us this morning. To all the people here, if you're on Facebook and you haven't subscribed to our YouTube page, get on over to our YouTube page. There should be a link in the description. And give it a subscribe. Turn the little bell on so you get the notifications. We do a bunch of different shows throughout the week, but we appreciate you being here. Feel free to leave your predictions in the chat. We'll get to ours a little later in the show. So we talked a little bit there about the midfield. No real surprises that it's Wirtz and Gravenberch. McAllister is there. Completely unchanged side to the one that started against Arsenal. Almost an unchanged side for the entire season at this point. We've basically gone with the same guys outside of necessity, right? We had the Gravenberch injury or Gravenberch suspension, and then we had the Frimpong injury that really altered that. Front 3, identical. Mo Salah, Ekitike, and Gakpo picks itself at this point, right? But it does once again leave Arne Slot without really a senior impact sub to make from the bench. And I'd argue his number 1 impact sub so far this season has been Curtis Jones to grab a hold of a match if he needs it. And now he's without him after a small knock. And will be out for a few weeks. So when we look at that bench, we have Gomez, Endo, Bradley, Chiesa, Robertson, Frimpong, Nioni, and Gamoa. So basically, you got 2 learner drivers, 3 fullbacks, an Italian that he doesn't rate, a Japanese warrior who gives you 10 minutes, a yellow card, and should be probably sent off, and 1 center back that everyone's nervous to see play because they're always afraid that he's, a deep run away from an injury. So I know we talk about this as being one of the deepest sides they've had and 2 for every position. When you see that, they are a little light, aren't they, when it comes to attacking impact without Isak yet in this lineup, in this setup?
Yeah, no, it is. I mean, he's going to have to shuffle some cards. I think it's not out of the realms of possibility. Let's say, for example, if Gakpo has to go off and he doesn't want to use Chiesa and he thinks maybe Ngamoa won't find as much space as he did against Newcastle, that he maybe puts Frimpong in there, puts Ekitike out on the left and Salah as a kind of quasi number 9 or something like that, and then that preserves the kind of pace on the right wing, although it makes it a proper right winger with a right foot crossing the ball in kind of a thing. So it changes how we play. But yeah, no, I mean, we all like Chiesa. I think it's going to be one of the puzzles of the universe of finding out why I know it was kind of maybe not a slot player, but he's never let us down. Like it's not like putting Darwin Núñez on the pitch. He's going to do some things for you, and he looks happy doing it. And he has scored impact goals. But we're all sitting here, I'm sure, with the same mind going, he's not going to put him on. He'll put the 16-year-old on before he puts Chiesa on.
Yeah, I understand that logic, and I do think he'll start against Southampton in the League Cup. I really do believe he'll probably get the right wing start, and I think Rio will probably start on the left. That might even be Isak's first full match where he starts a match. And then it's also like, well, how fair is that? It's the old Harvey Elliott adage. I wait all year to play, and then you give me James McConnell, Trey Neone, and, Dan's in front of me. And then you say, well, you got your shot and you didn't take it. You're like, well, you played me with the reserves and expected me to give a senior level performance. I was thinking about it with Robertson specifically. I really thought this was a landing spot to get Robbo a start. But then Paul made a good point in Discord yesterday, played tons of minutes for Scotland as he always does. Do you think maybe Slot has an eye here of, I give Robertson the start midweek in the Champions League. It rewards him. He's an exceptional, he's experienced in Europe. It lets Kirkez kind of take in a European night at Anfield and not be part of it. But then also sets Robbo up to start against Southampton when most likely Virgil will be rested, and therefore he gets to lead the team out. He's the vice captain now, like almost in a way where I know Robbo said this week, like, we had conversations. They've given me assurances there's going to be actual minutes and meaningful minutes for me. But it does truly feel like, the manager has shown his hand that Kirkez is undoubtedly, unequivocally the number one left back at the club at this point. Do you think that's the case, or do you think this is a situation of we want him baptism by fire, bet him in at all costs? Because to me, it feels like the manager, I thought it would be more of a split between the two of them to start the year, to be honest.
I think that how Kirkez has adapted so far, which wasn't necessarily the best. I mean, he was great against Arsenal, but he was very he was very reserved. And he played a defensive position for more than that out and out attacking thing we thought we got. I think this will be a horses for courses thing. I think you're right that Robertson probably maybe gets Atletico Madrid because of his experience. And because we know Atletico Madrid aren't going to be pouring 6, 7, 8 players forward, so you probably don't need Kirkez for that game. But I think as the season goes on, Robertson's chances will become fewer and further between the more Kirkez gets a grip on it. And it wouldn't shock me if he goes at the end of the season. Maybe he gets that long-awaited move to Celtic that he's always wanted, given that Kieran Tierney's always injured for them. So, there's a spot there for him too. And Brendan Rodgers won't be there probably at the end of the season either. So I think you're right. Kirkez is his number one man, but Kirkez also hasn't adapted to playing at a big club where he doesn't have as many responsibilities as he did at Bournemouth. So Robertson will, at least up till Christmas, maybe be horses for courses. I think you're right for the League Cup. As long as we're in the League Cup, he leads the team out. Maybe unless it's City or somebody like that, and they're intent on playing their full 11. But I think this is a good game for Kirkez, and I think Atletico's a good game for Robertson, and maybe that's what Slot's going to think, at least in the near future.
Well, we won't spend much time on the Burnley lineup because, to be honest, I barely know how to pronounce their names, let alone what positions they play or who they are. The only one I like is Steve, and it's really only because in the fantasy world he's become Electric Steve because he's on every single team because he's a 4 million starting defender, and it just makes me laugh that people actually call him Steve. But he is actually very good, and I will say they have some young talent on this side. I have been impressed with this Lyle Foster so far, their number 9, from the standpoint that he gets very little service, but he holds the ball up well. He brings others in around him. This Jaden Anthony, I believe he was at Bournemouth prior to his move to Burnley. There was a lot of question of, is he the prototypical, Charlie Adams type? He's good enough to score 30 goals in the championship. He's not good enough to make a Premier League bench. But he's started to show. When it comes to Burnley, do we really just have to make sure that we just don't end up getting complacent, giving away silly free kicks around the box and giving them opportunities to believe they're in the game? Because on paper, this is probably literally our easiest of the 38 fixtures away to Burnley, a team I picked to finish dead last in the table. How does Slot make sure that complacency doesn't kick in? We've seen it before when we go to these newly promoted sides. Sometimes they're more up for the first half than we are, it appears. What do you think they got to look out for? What should our listeners and viewers be looking out for this afternoon?
Well, I think we could almost boil down our vulnerability at the back to how Konate plays. If Konate's on form, I think we're fine. If he's not, if he's having one of his stupid days where you may as well be flying a kite at the same time as being on the field, getting hit on the break is where we're going to be in trouble, because we know Szoboszlai is going to attack for sure. It might be a game where Kerkez is told to attack to overwhelm their defensiveness. And we saw how that worked out in the first two games. It just leaves us so vulnerable. Although Gravenberch is in there now, so that might help a little bit. You may see Cozzy's famed Gravenberch sliding into make a temporary back three thing. But if Konate's on his game, I think we're fine. If he's not on his game, then Virg is doing a lot of covering for mistakes. And Allison has to do a lot of runs out to cover those, to sweep up those mistakes as well. They don't give us any sort of danger. I mean, if Lyle Foster's like good at holding up the ball, then you expect that the idea is to get the ball to him and then bring midfielders into play. I don't know how many they commit forward against Liverpool. They commit 5 forward, then they have to be very precise counterattacks, because as soon as they lose the ball, we're hitting them in the gaps that they're going to leave. So that might help us in that sense. But I think if Konate has a good game, we're fine. If he doesn't, car tablets time.
Yeah. So you mentioned the Chelsea result yesterday, the draw with Brentford. Here are the other 8 results, the other 7 results all on screen. Obviously, Arsenal winning 3-0, staying on joint top with 9 points. I think they're top right now just based on goal difference. I think they've scored 9, conceded 1, something like that. Obviously, the 1 was a worldie, and nobody in the world was stopping it. Wouldn't have mattered if Raya was standing on that side. I don't think he was stopping that. I mean, plus, it really wasn't Raya's fault. Just ask the manager. It was the new Puma ball. It's too hard. It's too hard for a goalkeeper to stop. It's unbelievable. Said nobody ever. Of all the results yesterday, which one jumps out at you? Which one tells the biggest story? Is it Newcastle's new German signing getting the goal and, scoring the winner for them and them getting off the snide? Is it Villa still not having a goal after 4 matches? Or is it Spurs and Bournemouth actually giving belief that through 4 matches, these are 2 sides that have a legit chance to, let's just say, battle for European places, not the title, but European spots? Like, what was the most impressive result to Maka yesterday?
It was the Spurs one, because Thomas, I'm a huge admirer, as anybody who watches the EPL panel show knows, of Thomas Frank, and he's brought a defensive solidity to that team. I mean, to be fair, West Ham are a shambles, as Potter's teams tend to be now these days, since Brighton. Just kind of like clueless, but Spurs were ruthless in the attack, and knew how to shut it down, which they never did under Postecoglou. He knew how to shut that game down. And to me, I think if I was a Spurs fan, I'd be incredibly hopeful of maybe a challenge for a Champions League spot this season under Frank.
Yeah.
I definitely won't be finishing 15th to 17th or anything like it.
I don't know if you mentioned him earlier, kind of being shocked that Roy Keane, I think yesterday Roy Keane made a comment that if Tottenham continues to play like they are right now, he has confidence that they can finish ahead of Arsenal, because he thinks that Thomas Frank's a better manager than Mikel Arteta, and that the squad are pretty similar, and I really believe, like, I watched that Spurs match yesterday. Xavi Simons, who's been, gotten all kinds of praise and criticism from, he forced a move to PSG, then he forced his way out of PSG to go to the Dutch league on loan. He wanted Leipzig, but then he wanted Bayern. Like, everyone kind of makes him out to be a very immature young player. But I'll tell you what, you saw he walked into that Spurs lineup and was the most influential player. Everything he did on set pieces, those two center backs, like we talk about, obviously Virgil and Kanate and Gabriel and Saliba being the best in the Premier League, hands down, no question. Romero and Van der Ven, when they're on it together, and Romero's not losing his head getting sent off, they are a quality partnership, both defensively and more importantly, attacking. Like they are really good going forward. I was impressed yesterday with Jed Spence and Poro. I think the Bergvall kid is going to be an absolute star. Like I think that kid is tabbed to go to a bigger and better club than Tottenham. I really think they're building something. And you mix in Kudus, Matthias Tell. They still don't have Solanke back yet. Brennan Johnson sitting on the bench. Kulusevski might have been their player of the year last year. And I hate saying this, but I always feel like we pile on with this, guy. But that side got better without James Maddison because they're no longer carrying James Maddison on the pitch. Everyone worked.
Yeah, I think that's as accurate an assessment as it. I mean, in terms of the squad, I think they are equal to Arsenal. But as you say there, if Ange Postecoglou had Romero and Van de Ven fit for the entirety of last season, he may still be the Spurs manager right now.
It's true.
He didn't do much defensive coaching by the sounds of things. Never did it at Celtic, other than the very basics. But they're two players. Like the reason why Verge is probably, at least over the last 5 years, the best defender in the league is because he can sort the defense out without having to be coached to sort the defense out. That's always been the mark of good defensive partnerships. Is you coach them because that's your job as a coach, but you don't have to. They'll sort it out for you if you needed to, and those two can sort the Spurs defense out without Postecoglou. But without them two, there was nothing happening on the coaching side to work with the two that came in while they were out. So he might still be the Spurs manager if they were fit last season. And Thomas Frank's going to keep them fit. And I think they might have one of the best defensive records at the end of the season.
Yeah, he's just an exceptional coach. You can see it. You can see it with the players. You can see it in his time at Brentford. You can see it every time he speaks. The relationship he creates with the players. He's just just an absolute monster motivator. And my God, could United have screwed that up more? They could have hired him twice.
Yeah.
They literally could have hired him twice. They could have hired him when they hired Ten Hag. And they easily should have hired him last summer. The difference is Thomas Frank probably had too much class and respect for what Brentford did for his career. So he was never going to leave them mid-season, and United refused to wait. Yeah. So just United being United, can't get out of their way. Long may it last.
He's another example of those who didn't play professional football being very, very good. There's something in that.
There absolutely is. I've said it forever. I don't care if you are a pro or you're right at that close level and you just don't make it to the top. You find me the greatest minds of football. They were usually squad players, average players that cared so much to learn it because they had to be mentally better than everybody else. It's why Michael Jordan failed as a basketball coach every time he tried and an executive, because the truth was it came too easy. He worked his ass off and deserved being the greatest of all time. But when things come that easy, they expect it to be that easy for everybody else. And that's why I think you see guys like Rooney struggled. I think Lampard struggled. Those were guys where the game came natural to them. Yeah. It slowed down for them in big moments. It doesn't for the lesser player. And I think sometimes you need that as a manager and or a coach. So let's get to our Premier League prediction here for Burnley and Liverpool today. Maka, what's the score at the final whistle?
I believe I said on Thursday 4-0, and looking at the squads, I'm going to say 4-0 and Wirtz gets his goal.
I love it. 4-0, Wirtz gets his goal. I'm going to go, I think I said 3-1, but I'm going to amend that from Monday night. I'm going to say we keep another clean sheet because I think it's important. I think it's important that we start to show some semblance of control in matches, and I think the manager will try to do that with a side that should be able to be controlled. So I'm going to go with you as well. I'm going to say 4-0. Wirtz gets his goal and an assist. Like Wirtz gives us a Wirtz like virtuoso performance. He's the best player on the pitch by a mile. He does the things we want him to do. I do think Mo will get a goal or two. And hopefully someone from the bench, whether it's Rio, I'd like to see minutes for Neoni in this match. If you're going to keep putting him on Premier League benches, you might as well give him some minutes, because I do think with Jones out, you need to see what you have for options in the midfield, because we're basically playing with one rotational piece in each of the three phases of the pitch, and that's kind of a scary place to be. So thank you to everyone in the comments. If you haven't already, please go on over, subscribe to the page. I'm not sure if we will have a post-match because my wife is on the telephone, and it really is all dependent on how quickly we have to leave this house after the final whistle, because the stupid New England Patriots are on television today, which means my wife's stupid Buffalo Bills will only be on if you go to a pub. So shucks, I have to sit in a bar room this afternoon. It's painful things we do for the loves of our lives. So for Gally, for Maka, for everyone at ASTV, thank you for joining this morning. Enjoy the match. Here's to 3 more points and go on top of the table. Up the Reds.